Good morning, everyone. Morning. Thank you. My name is Nathan Sinclair. I am a junior computer science major at Curry College. And before I begin, I would like to thank our sponsors today. That being said, today we're going to be talking about user experience for those of us who may be less inclined in the field of user experience, what that means, what that looks like, what does that include. And so user experience, or UX, are all of the emotions and attitudes about using a particular product or a system or a service. This includes the practical, the meaningful, and valuable aspects of the computer-human interaction. It encompasses accessibility and embraces a perception of how we use everything that we touch in a day-to-day life. How useful something is, how easy it is to use, and how efficiently we can use a product. User experience is subjective, which means that it is based on an individual's perception and their thoughts. It's dynamic in nature and can constantly change over time. Based on the circumstances, the expectations, and the technology available, the same way you experience something may not be the same way someone else experiences something, and one person's thoughts on an object may change over time based on, again, technology available and how they've continued to experience something. UX is the nexus of business goals, user needs, and technology, and they all come together right here in this little tri-band diagram. It is much more than just a user interface. It all starts with a URL, and it should be one that people can easily remember and easily keystroke. For example, Nike is one word. You just remember Nike. Apple, Microsoft, things of that nature, one word, simple, straight to the point. For example, the Boston Code Camp website is those three words, Boston Code Camp. If it was something like BCC or something like Boston CC, not only can you confuse that with a different URL, but it may be more complicated to remember over time. UX also includes the quality of an object, so the overall general assembly, how it looks, how it feels in your hands, if it's something physical, if it's an app or a website, how polished the design is, how clean are all the characters, what does the font look like, things of that nature, how much it costs, the delivery time, if I order it now, will it get to me in 2 weeks, will it get to me in 3 months, how will you keep me engaged while I wait, how can I continue to engage with this brand while I wait for my product, the return process, if I don't like it, how long will it take me to send it back, do I like sending it back, maybe I want to send it back, but you've made it complicated and difficult for me to send it back, and the longevity of the product, the lifespan. How long can I expect to be using this product? How long can I expect to be engaging with it? How long can I expect to be one with your brand? Anything and everything else that is important to the user is covered in a user's experience. It may not just be an interface that they can touch. It may not just be the size of the buttons. It is the overall experience with the user. Again, user experience is how an app or website looks and also how it works. From the user's perspective, does it cover all of their wants and needs? Is it visually pleasing? Is it intuitive to use? Do your links go where they say they do? Are the buttons taking me to where I'm supposed to feel like they take me? And can I connect with this company on places like social media? How well do I feel associated with the brand? And how accessible is it? If I have a visual impairment, if I have arthritis in my fingers, can I still engage with this at a full capacity? If I'm colorblind, can I still read all the different text? If I'm having a hard time hearing, is there something that I would need to listen to on your app or website in order to understand what's going on? Why is good UX so important? It's important because it can help save time and money by minimizing the need for user support. If I have to call customer service every day, not only is that poor user experience, I'm not having a good time, but it also means that you have to pay the people on the phones, you have to pay maybe the in-person repair people, and so that will take away from my enjoyment of your product. It creates repeat business. As I continue to engage and use this app or website, now I'm continuing to deepen myself in this brand connection, and I will continue to buy more and more if I'm enjoying myself, if I'm having a good time engaging with your company. It creates customer loyalty, again, for the same points. because customers now remain loyal to this brand or this service because they feel a more personal connection to it. It makes repeat buying easier as they've constantly been able to navigate through this app, find the pathways, understand where they need to go. If I need to buy paper from a paper company, what kind of paper, what size, what dimensions, what thickness even, if I've already been to this website, if there is good customer loyalty, if there's a great experience, I can go back and easily do it again. As I become more familiar, it becomes easy for me to engage with you. Users feel more comfortable in a place that they've been before. So as they continue to go back and forth, re-engaging and reusing, it makes it a lot easier for a user to feel comfortable, to engage, and to continue giving, and to continue to earn your time and service. It'll increase user satisfaction and user productivity because at the end of the day, users always want to use your app and website, so it's best to make it easy for them. Psychologists break down a user's experience into these 7 portions, which make up the next portion of this presentation. The first point is that people have limitations. So it's important to design a clean app or website. And what that means is that you need navigational aids. For example, a search bar. This helps me find exactly what I'm looking for. If I'm, again, buying paper, I need maybe an 8x11 sheet of white. I can type in 8x11 and find all of your selections for 8x11. Information should be easy to find because as people need to engage with this app or service, they need to be able to find what they are looking for, and that should be easy and accessible for everybody. It is always best to avoid overwhelming users with too much information at one time. Instead, create separate pages and have functioning links that go to all of these separate pages. Continuing on with limitations, as I said previously, some people have issues seeing. How will that factor into their presentation? Some people have issues hearing. How will that factor into engaging with your product? Some people have issues perceiving color. How do these different things play a part in your app or website? If you have moving assets and I'm using a screen reader, maybe that changes the way I engage with this because the app and the screen reader aren't aligned with each other. I've heard the same thing read 4 times as it moved across the screen, and now I'm dissatisfied with what's going on. There are also more issues than just seeing, hearing, and perceiving color. Again, for example, someone with arthritis, they may have a hard time holding onto the mouse. I know my grandma has Parkinson's. She has a hard time using a trackpad, and she has a hard time grasping a physical mouse. So a lot of different apps or websites are less accessible for her because they're not touch compatible. People make mistakes according to psychologists. Psychologists would say that people are capable of making mistakes, and I have a rebuttal on the next slide. It is always best to make an app or website intuitive or logical. The bigger things are important. They're large headings, they sit at the top in large fonts, bold, and then as we get less important or into smaller subcategories, we shrink and we diminish as we diminish the importance of different things. People become confused when it is not intuitive. If something that is less important is larger, now I have to stop and think, why is it that this presentation at CodeCamp is much bigger than the words CodeCamp itself? I thought I was coming to CodeCamp, not Nathan's presentation. People are also easily frustrated. I cannot count the amount of times where I'm trying to do something and I have a short temper and I give up early. Or I'm trying to find something and I can't find it, so I just leave it at the website entirely, right? Sometimes there are no ways to find what I'm looking for if it is inefficiently sorted or inefficiently organized. It is always important to, for example, make things like clicks intuitive. Clicks are the main way, clicks or taps are the main way that people will engage with your app or website, so make those intuitive. Text and links are usually highlighted in blue, they're usually underlined, and if you've been there before, they usually turn purple. All of a sudden, if I see it turn green when I click it, or if it's black like the rest of regular text and I try to click on it, and it actually is a link when it wasn't supposed to be, or if the link doesn't take me anywhere, now I'm confused. Aesthetics are also important. Maintaining a consistent color scheme across different parts of your website can mean that your links can be green, can mean that you don't have to necessarily point them out, but as long as it's consistent, users will understand and want to encompass that change over time. Now, while psychologists may argue that people make mistakes, computer science says that it is the responsibility of the designer to just design it well in the first place to minimize the need for these mistakes. It'll help avoid confusion, and if you just make things intuitive in the first place, you're less likely to be confused. In the instance that someone still may misclick or still become misguided on your site, it's supposed to be forgiving. You're supposed to have a back arrow or maybe a back button, a way to undo what you've done in a way that makes sense. If I accidentally added something to a cart, I don't want it, I should be able to remove it and still continue shopping. If there's something that isn't where it's supposed to be, that's my fault. I clicked on the wrong link, now I'm receiving information I don't want. I should be able to go back and undo what I've done. The third point is that human memory is complicated. Again, avoid overwhelming users with too much information. If a presentation is too busy, if a web page has too much going on, if it's bright and flashing, all of these things can overwhelm somebody, and psychologists say that humans can only take in 3 or 4 pieces of information at a time. So it's important to understand what those 3 and 4 pieces of information are and make them the most important thing at one time. Unconscious processing and unconscious biases play a part in that, and we'll talk about that in 2 more slides here. But it is always of the best advice to focus on a singular thing per web page. Similar to coding, a method only has one responsibility, a class only does one thing. It is in the same vein here with user experience, that everything should be restricted to one thing at a time in order to avoid overwhelming users. The fourth point is that people are social. People like to feel included, they like to feel like they're a part of the pack, so to speak. That being said, a brand needs a social media presence. A brand needs links to social medias, but also a way for users to reach out and engage. It's all well and good if your app and website works, but if people don't feel connected to it, they'll probably find something else to go to. Encourage people to interact, encourage people to engage, encourage people to leave reviews, for example. This makes an app or website less intimidating, as people can continue to go back and leave updates, leave reviews, and that's also free feedback. If you're wondering how well an app or website will perform, ask people, create personas, get tests going, see what people want, see how people are using and engaging this product, and then take that feedback for free and adapt. This one here is the creme de la creme of slides. Grab their attention. Beware of bright colors and terribly moving objects. Colors and movements can focus a user's attention, but if you do too much, you don't grab someone's attention, you instead distract them. If a slide is too busy, like this one is, or if a web page has too much going on, you are no longer paying attention, you are just kind of taking everything in and looking at the point here that is no longer on the screen. For a great example of this, we will turn our attention to gatesandfences.com over here, a lovely website of which there were a lot of gasps and laughs in the room. A lot is going on here. It's very busy, there are a lot of words, and I'll save you the time of having to go through this. A lot of these things don't work. My favorite example is when I click anywhere over here and I come to this. If I want to buy now, that button doesn't work. It'll slowly just float across the screen. Sometimes it'll get frozen and stuck for whatever reason, but it'll keep floating across the screen and go back and forth, and you can't buy anything. This PayPal link right here does not actually go anywhere. It just says the words PayPal. And as a user, I'm expecting this to take me to somewhere where I can pay. I'm expecting to be able to pay for a $9,000 game for however much it is with my PayPal, and I can't click on it. I can't use it. Buy now with Visa and MasterCard is the same case. It'll keep floating around, but I can't pay for it. I can't use it. So these things are now just distractions, right? All these texts are now just distracting me. I would love to know that the aluminum never rusts in bold, but there's already so much going on that I'll never get to that. I'll never stop and read this entire paragraph. I'll just look at these empty spaces and say, wow, that's a lot of empty spaces. Turning it back to the presentation itself, we'll come back to gates and fences later. Now we get to unconscious processing. Human perception is influenced by two things: what we expect and what we focus on. Experiences that are out of the ordinary may break what we expect and may break our focus. These create conscious memories because they stand out to us. Your favorite day, your favorite flavor of ice cream, your favorite food, these things stand out to you because they break the norm, they break the mold. And mundane or expected experiences fall back and are less memorable, such as every day at work, every day at school. These things fall into a routine in our minds and they become less memorable. The days begin to blur together. While these mundane or expected experiences tend to be overlooked, sometimes for a user's experience, that can be okay, right? Because they leave a mental pathway in a positive way. Even though you can overlook them time after time, they still lead to positive pathways and positive memories about engaging with the product. Gates and fences stood out to everyone in this room in a very negative way. I would have rathered for it to be mundane so that it blends in and you never notice it at all. But that might have been worse, because now Gates and Fences has a reputation. They say there's no such thing, there's no press, that's bad press. Gates and Fences haven't heard that one yet, but an intuitive app or website makes people feel comfortable, makes them feel included, makes them want to engage. And so sometimes they can be mundane, but they can be mundane in a great way. They can be beautifully average. Not everything needs to be over the top and complicatedly over-designed. The last point is that in the case of a visual system, do not overload, because people don't read everything they see. They tend to scan. Most people here, if not all of us, speak English, if not more. And so we start from the top left, and we scan to the right, and then we come down, we scan to the right, we come down, scan to the right. In that instance, in all instances, we don't read every single word. We just kind of take out the big bits and leave the words like the words like and, the words like small, minute details, small, minute information. We don't even bother processing, we don't bother reading. Too much information overwhelms the user, and now I have to do a lot more work filtering out all these extraneous pieces of information. Instead, just create links to new pages. Just make a new page. And then make sure the link actually works to the new page, unlike PayPal. Keep things organized and clean in this sense just means less words, less complicated, less over-engineered, and this is where users can give you feedback on just how many words are too words, just how many things at one time are too many things. One more time, back to Gates and Fences. We can look at it just for the fun of looking at it. When you look at gatesandfences.com, there are certain things here that you don't bother reading. Nobody has sat down the entire time this was up and still will be up and read this entire thing. You may look at the bright blue bits, if you can read them from the back of the room. Bright blue bits, cool. Those stand out because of the color blue, but I don't know what they do because they're surrounded by so much extra stuff. There are little gems in there, but they're surrounded by a whole lot of rough that I don't want to engage in. There's blue here, great blue there, this bright green here, I don't know what that's for, this search bar that I don't even want to try, and then red over here, red and black, red and black, red and black. They're supposed to be in alternating order, but they're not. These blues are taking me all aluminum driveway gates, and if I see this multiple times, then that probably means you didn't need to put it there multiple times. If there are multiple things in the same place, then one of them could go. More of that can go. Although we offer a wide selection of ornamental designs or decorative designs, we can design or manufacture any style in aluminum or wrought iron metals. that would have been fine. You tell me what you just need to tell me. Everything else here is cool, but I just want to buy a gate. I don't need your life story. How many people in here bake? Bake, cook, anything like that? Fantastic. How many times have you tried to look for a recipe and the entire thing was the author's life story? When I was 5, I rode a bike. When I was 7, my dog died. Now here's how to make cornbread, right? You could have just told me without having to give me all of that extra information. That is a lot of extra stimulus and helped overload the user in a way where sometimes it might have been easier to just click away. In conclusion, maintain a clean design. Create a clean, simple style. Tell me what I need to know at that page, at that place, at that time. Do not overwhelm your user with a bunch of extraneous information. Less is always going to be more in the case of user experience, because the user doesn't really care about how pretty you thought the design was. They don't really care about how many links you had to create, how many pages you have to make. People don't just spend time wandering through websites for fun. I mean, I'm sure somebody out there does. But for the most part, people don't just spend time wandering through websites for fun. They're there for a purpose. Help them achieve their purpose and let them move on. Utilize navigation tools to aid in this journey, aid in this venture, by making it easy for me to find what I need when I need it. Also, know your audience. I think it was in a book that I read by a man with the last name Norman. I do not remember his first name right now. But he said, you are not your user. You not being your user is paramount here. Because what you think is fantastic, someone else may hate. And while you can't please everybody, at least try to please the people that are using your website. What is the user's perspective? Does this user have limitations? And what is they trying to accomplish, being the most important part? Do you help them accomplish their needs? It's not necessarily about you and what you want and what you need and how pretty you think the design is, how much you like this page. It's what does the user need? How do you accomplish them in their tasks? I cannot stress enough the importance of navigation. It helps users visualize your website. If I get on Amazon, cool, I'm on Amazon. I can probably use the search bar first, find a product, click on it. Maybe if it's a shirt, what size shirt, what color, great, add to cart. All of that I can do in my head before using the website. Many people, when I said the word Amazon, thought of the Amazon homepage, because not only is it simple and clean, but it's well organized and something that can easily be navigated through. The search bar is very prominent at the top, big magnifying glass, says search in it, and it's easy to search and navigate through the website. With good navigation, everything can stay organized, right? If I want to buy a shirt, maybe it'll suggest a pair of pants to go with it. Keeps it organized. Make sure that everything is laid out in the ways that it needs to be laid out. I don't want to be looking for shirts and then also water balloons, because those two things don't really correlate together. So why are they in the same section? The last time, keep it clean, less is more. Help utilize navigation features. Power of search. Include a search bar on every page and put it in a very obvious location consistently. Consistency is the most important part. If it is in a very consistent place, if I ever get lost, I know how to get back home. Put keywords in the search bar, like search or start searching or enter text here, so that doubling down, I know what I'm looking for. Put a magnifying glass in the corner so that I know exactly what this is. I know exactly how to find what I'm looking for, and I know how to make it from beginning to end. This concludes my presentation. I'm Nathan Sinclair. Feel free to email me or reach out on LinkedIn. With the time we have left, does anybody have any questions?
Are there any things for user experience that is like common among multiple websites that should be like utilized in yours? Like at the top always being the search bar. Mm-hmm. You know, is that like something that should be carried on because it's like kind of like group knowledge, like everybody knows it.
Yeah, it's become very common knowledge that, you know, search bars help you search. There's no need for the camera icon on your phone to look like an old-timey camera with a clicker. But it's been so ingrained in just the human mind that this is what a camera looks like, we're gonna keep it consistent. Even though on my phone, it doesn't need to look like a camera, it still does, right? There's a word for it that has just left my mind.
Skeuomorphic.
There we go. Skeuomorphic designs. They're consistent across, you know, generations, across time, because they've been consistent. If I go to Google, search bar, I see the magnifying glass, I know I'm searching. Whether it's at the top of the screen, whether it's in the middle of the screen. When I was a kid, there used to be like 2 search bars, one in like the middle and then one like the far right. And they're both search bars, they still all do the same thing. Yep.
Nathan, great presentation.
Thank you.
This might be a little unfair, but I do analytics, and so I came here for user design, very similar concepts. Do you have any tips on how this might apply to that, or any additional content regarding that subject?
Yeah, see how long a user is on the website. If they're there, see how long they're there, and see what pages are on there for a long amount of time. If I get stuck on the home page for long periods, it's probably a bad sign. But if I'm scrolling through your catalog for a long time, that means either 2 things. Either there's a lot of things there I want to buy, or I can't find what I'm looking for. And those 2 things could end up taking away from my experience or adding to it. I added an extra item, or I wasted a lot of my time and I couldn't find what I needed.
Excellent.
Yep.
How did you find that website? Because I know you're not buying a gate.
I'm not buying a $9,000 gate in Florida. The website came from an earlier rendition of this presentation, done by a young lady named Sarah Morley, who was a Curry graduate in 2013. I don't even know how she found gates and fences. You can direct that question to our professor in the back here, Mr. Ronald Crowley.
I don't know. I
So-
know she found it, I don't know how.
So nobody's buying aluminum fences in Florida. But for the point of demonstration, I could have just as easily pulled up the Curry webpage where I need to register for my classes and spend half an hour there crying.
It's so good.
It is terrible. The worst thing I've ever seen, worse than gates and fences. Yeah.
Gates and fences. So how come you students haven't fixed it yet? Design a better page for your.
They won't allow us, we tried.
It's gotta be a class project.
I've gone to like high schools around, Curry's located in Milton. I've gone to high schools around Milton and showed them the webpage, and everybody goes, "Oh my goodness, this is revolting." And I'm like, "Yeah, how do you think I feel?" They're like, "Why don't you change it?" Because we just signed like a 10-year contract with somebody that we can't change anymore.
Curry is a business like any other business, and they have people who are designed to do it, and they're not going to admit that the students can do a better job because it's job security for them. It's that simple.
If there are no further questions, thank you all for coming, and we have 4 minutes until lunch.